All right. Well, happy fourth Sunday of Easter, everybody. When you get to celebrate the church year with a lot of the bigger Christian world, you get 8 weeks of Easter, which is pretty great. And as you've probably noticed, today happens to also be Good Shepherd Sunday. I learned this week that every fourth Sunday of Easter has a text about Jesus being the Good Shepherd. And I'm going to just start by asking Jordan if he would read the text that we have for today. And I'm going to put it on the screen here.
Gladly. I will sincerely apologize. I didn't know that I was coming up this soon, so I had a chip in my mouth. All right. Our reading today comes from John chapter 10, verses 10 to 18. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay my life down for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not part of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life, only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have the authority to lay it down and the authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father.
The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Thank you, Jordan. So I'm just going to leave the slide up for a sec because I have a couple images to show you, but I learned a lot about Jesus and shepherds and sheep this week. And I want to start out with this interesting fact about the animal kingdom. And probably this is the only thing you're going to remember from the whole sermon, so I'm sorry, but there are hundreds of species who exhibit bisexual behavior in the animal kingdom, mating with whichever sex is most available to them. But there are apparently only 2 species of animals that we know of so far who exhibit lifelong homosexual preferences regardless of availability of mates. One species is human, and the other is domesticated sheep. Turns out that around 8% of male domestic sheep prefer other males, even when fertile females are available to them. And this is a cartoon from David Hayward, who goes by Naked Pastor. You should definitely follow him on Instagram. He's got lots of good cartoons. So that's a little factoid that you can keep in your back pocket. Another interesting tidbit of information I learned is that the 3 most ancient depictions of Jesus, the 3 most ancient paintings of Jesus, are not portrayals of Jesus on the cross or of Jesus in the manger, but of Jesus, the Good Shepherd. And here they are. There's some of the photos of the earliest paintings of Jesus, not the ones Jesus painted, but the ones people painted of Jesus. And they were all hidden deep in Roman tombs and catacombs. So this metaphor of Jesus as Good Shepherd really must have resonated with people at that time. I'm going to admit, shepherd imagery does not really do much for me. Kind of reminds me of Shirley's sermon where she was talking about how Fisher person image didn't do much for her. I know shepherds still exist in the world, but I don't see them around much. Of course, in the first century Roman world, they were a more common sight. Some people saw them as loners, rough around the edges, hillbilly types. Others, especially in the western part of the Greco-Roman world, idealized shepherds. They painted these pastoral scenes of hillsides dotted with sheep and a shepherd lounging peacefully under a tree nearby, maybe playing a pipe. And that kind of chill, peaceful vibe is probably closer to my own association with the Good Shepherd image. Maybe you've seen pictures like these painted on Sunday school walls. Look at that. Look at that luscious mullet on the guy on the right. This is the gentle Jesus with the soft flowing robes, cuddling lambs, smiling and peaceful. And there's nothing wrong with this Jesus, except that he's maybe a bit too white in some of these pictures. Maybe the kind of Jesus who's comfortable cuddling lambs is a refreshing expansion of our idea of a gentler masculinity for Jesus. But this Jesus is not the Jesus of John chapter 10. Jesus did not whisper the words that Jordan just read in a peaceful, backlit, glowing light. In John 10, Jesus is embroiled in a tense conflict with the Pharisees, the teachers of the law. And these words are not chilling them out. They're actually amping up the tension. So I want to unpack the context. I'm just going to take away the distraction of beautiful Jesus for a second. Let's see what's actually happening here. Now, the first thing we need to remember is that in Hebrew scriptures, so what we know as the Old Testament, the scriptures of Jesus and the Pharisees, absolutely no one calls themselves a good shepherd except for God. So God is the shepherd in Psalm 23, and in Isaiah 40, which is another popular one. Maybe a lesser known one, Ezekiel 34. It's a bit of a rant about the leaders or so-called shepherds of Israel who feed themselves instead of the sheep and rule with a harsh hand and fail to bind up the injured or seek the lost. And God announces God's intentions to feed those leaders with justice and to replace them as the one true shepherd. So there's no doubt about it. Anyone claiming to be a good shepherd in the way Jesus is doing is claiming to be God. And that was blasphemy. Now, just a couple chapters back in John, the crowd tried to stone Jesus after he said, kind of wink, wink, before Abraham, I am. Because that's another name for God, the great I am, Yahweh. It was Jesus's version of a dog whistle, and they definitely caught it. So when you look at this passage today, where Jesus says multiple times, I am the good shepherd, he's referencing not one, but two divine names. In other words, Jesus is flexing a double dog whistle here, maybe a border collie whistle if we're going with shepherd imagery. This good shepherd metaphor is not just describing the kinds of things Jesus does. It's a claim, an ontological claim about who he is. He's claiming to be God. And unsurprisingly, later in this chapter, there's going to be a second attempt to stone him for this. But I skipped over something that happened right before this John 10 passage. Jesus went and searched for and found a lost sheep. Not a literal sheep, but a person who was wandering because the Pharisees had thrown him out. This person is known to us as the man born blind. This is the one Jesus healed by spitting in the mud and making mud and telling him to go wash in a pool. And the Pharisees insulted this man, threw him out of the temple because they were so mad that Jesus had healed him on the Sabbath. When Jesus heard that they threw him out, he went looking for him, like a good shepherd would do. And when he found him, when this man saw his healer with the healed eyes for the first time, Jesus reintroduced himself as the Son of Man. He wanted them to really see, really know each other. But just as this beautiful mutual recognition was taking place, the Pharisees, who were lurking around the edges, took offense to something Jesus said about spiritual sight and spiritual blindness. They said, "Are we blind then?" And that's when Jesus launches into this bit about shepherds. The shepherd thing is a throwdown. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put the passage back up on the screen with a few Greek words thrown in for good measure, because who doesn't like Greek words? Okay, that's not what I want. All right, I'm going to go back through this, and I want to see if I can paraphrase Jesus a bit with the attitude I imagine him having. Okay, so give me some license here. I am the good shepherd. Yes, you heard that right. I am God. And I don't mean good shepherd as in lovely shepherd. That word kalos means I'm the true shepherd. I'm the ideal shepherd. True shepherd, true God. I'm the shepherd who lays down his life for his sheep, which means I'm taking this ideal shepherd thing to a whole new level. None of those divine good shepherd images in your scriptures go so far as to lay down their lives for their sheep. How do I lay down my life? Thanks for asking. I will be laying down my literal life in my upcoming crucifixion, but by being incarnate in a human body and by the way I've lived this life on earth, I've already laid down so much of my ego, my power, my soul, my psyche, as the Greek word says here. I'm going to say this 5 more times in this passage. I lay down my life. This is no weak rolling over and letting myself get killed. No, I lay it down. An active choice, an exercise of my divine will and authority. I'm flexing the superpower of nonviolent resistance. And spoiler alert, I'll also take my life back again. Thank you very much. As for you hired hands, what are you laying down? You care more about the bottom line than you do about the sheep. You don't care enough to fight for them. You abandon them to the wolves. And you don't just let them wander away. You actually throw them out. You tell them they can't be members. They can't be on the worship team. They can't stay under your roof. Because you've done the cost-benefit analysis and decided it wouldn't be good for business. But me, well, I would rather die than abandon them because I know these sheep. I know them, gnosko knowing. I know them by experience, by relationship, by name. I understand them. I reveal myself to them. My sheep are family. We belong to each other. I know them like I know my own father, and that's really saying something because my father and I are one. And I've got other sheep. I've got sheep you don't even know about. And now this isn't a power trip. I'm not trying to lord it over everyone with an iron shepherd staff. I do this because my deepest desire is for my sheep to have life to the full. Perisson, more life than is actually necessary. Abundant life beyond limits. I refuse to let you hired hands suck their life away with your judgments, your burdens, your betrayals. I want only the greenest pastures, only the most refreshing streams for them. So I'm going to chase them down with my goodness and mercy and unfailing love. Do you hear the fierceness to Jesus's love here? There's an intensity to it that gets lost in our safe, tame paintings of Jesus the shepherd. Jesus has fight in him. Fight for you, fight for me, for us. Fight against anyone or anything that would abandon or snatch at us or try to hold back God's love for us. And because Jesus is also claiming to be God in no uncertain terms, he's telling us that this fierce love is also at the heart of who God is. That's why this tweet from a couple of weeks ago made me so angry, and maybe some of you already have seen this. This is R.C. Sproul Jr. tweeting about ex-Christians like Joshua Harris, who wrote I Kiss Dating Goodbye, praying that they'll go through unbearable pain and emptiness so that they'll come running back to the Good Shepherd. No, this is not how Jesus works, not the Jesus of John 10, not the Jesus I know. The Good Shepherd Jesus does not pursue us with pain until we obey him. The Good Shepherd Jesus pursues us with goodness and unfailing love until we're able to see God for who she really is. I'm going to take that down because I don't want to look at it anymore. The very fact that R.C. Sproul Jr. can twist the Good Shepherd in that way, that the fact that we've watered down and sort of tamed this shepherd metaphor, that makes me want to explore other metaphors that aren't so worn out or used up. Some fresher and fiercer metaphors for the love that I see in Jesus here. And ironically, the 2 images that came to me this week both happen to be kind of predators of sheep. So I don't know how that works together, but I hope you'll go with me on this. So first, there's this 19th century poem by Francis Thompson called Hound of Heaven. Has anyone ever heard of Hound of Heaven or read the poem? A couple of people. This poet, Francis Thompson, led a bit of a tortured life. He was addicted to opiates. He was selling matches to survive while he wrote poems, and he ended up dying early of tuberculosis. But he wrote this poem about fleeing from God, looking for happiness elsewhere, opium, other things, finding God chasing him like a hound, nipping at his heels. And at the end of the poem, God finally catches up to him, and he discovers that God holds the happiness that he's been seeking all along. Now, this is not actually my favorite poem. It kind of drifts into a bit of the R.C. Sproul Jr. theology of God causing us pain to bring us back. But the part of the poem that draws me is the metaphor of God as a hound, the idea of being hounded relentlessly by God. Now, maybe that feels kind of stalkerish to you. And I mean, some scriptures do have this stalker vibe, like when the psalmist in Psalm 139 says, "Where can I go to get away from you, God? I can't go to heaven. I can't go anywhere to get away." But I want to say clearly that while I don't believe Jesus will leave us alone, I also don't believe Jesus forces himself on anyone. God will not breach our will. Non-consensual love is not love. Yet I also believe that when we finally see God for who they really are, the God who is love, it will be incredibly hard not to love them. So I like this hound image. I personally find it comforting that God promises to follow me unwearyingly. Maybe we'd even say doggedly. That's for you, Mark, for you. Follows us like a hound, never losing our scent, no matter where our wandering trail takes us, never giving up on us, no matter how much we're deconstructing, doubting, moving away, even with us in the valley of the shadow of death. If you participated in any of our Holy Saturday services, you'll know about the ancient and still current Orthodox theology of the harrowing of hell. This is the idea that after Jesus died and before he rose, he descended into hell. It's in our creed. So he conquers hell and sets free everyone who's chained up there. A shepherd who will voluntarily lay down their life, a hound of heaven who will follow us into the dark, even to hell, because nothing, absolutely nothing, can separate us from their love. Because sometimes we do need to walk into the dark of uncertainty. Sometimes I think we need to walk away. We need to even run away from church, away from faith, from scripture, from prayer, from God. Especially when it's all been boxed up for us in this toxic, shame-filled, fear-filled packaging. When it won't let us tell our truths or trust our bodies, ask our questions, leaving us with the opposite of life to the full, life on empty. When we're told, like in the song that we sang at the beginning, that fear is the heart of love, I think Jesus himself sometimes leads us out of those places, whether we see it that way or not. Or maybe it feels like faith slips through our fingers, or that God ran away from us at times. And sometimes those feelings last for months, sometimes for a lifetime. And it can be frightening, or it can be freeing, or both. But I do know one thing. I know that I don't have to pray for God to cause people pain and bring them back, because God is already with them, trailing them at a healthy distance. And in the farthest and unlikeliest of places, they might catch sight of this God in the corner, or feel God near their heels whispering, "You're the one I love. I know you. You're mine." Revealing a different side of God's self to you and showing glimpses of the fiercely shame-free and abundant life-giving God she really is. I want to just look at one more image that came to mind for me this week when I considered the type of love Jesus is exemplifying here. And that's the image of Jesus as our holy mama bear. There's actually, I found one passage in the book of Hosea where God compares God's own self to a bear robbed of her cubs, a bear lashing out against those who harmed her cubs. So I feel like I've got good biblical ground to stand on here. Jesus's love is protective and fierce as a mama bear. Mama bear imagery tends to remind me in particular of Black mothers who are raising their children in the harsh realities of pervasive structural racism. This week, it makes me think of Micaiah Bryant's mom, Paula, who's been defending Micaiah's memory against her detractors. Or Eric Garner's mom, Gwen Carr, who told reporters, "When I finished demonstrating in the streets, I went straight to the lawmakers up in Albany and I faced them. I don't believe in writing letters or telephone calls because I know how far that gets you. I like to look them straight in the face and put my demands out there." Or like Sabrina Fulton, Trayvon Martin's mom, who ran for public office in Miami last year saying, "I have another son, Javaris Fulton, and I have to keep moving because I have to fight for him." God is a Black woman. Because remember, God looks like all of us. God created all of us in their image, but we've had almost 2,000 years of God being presented primarily as a white man. So why not devote the next couple millennia to picturing God as a Black woman with this deep mama bear energy for all of her cubs, especially the most at-risk ones, the Black and brown and indigenous ones, the disabled ones, like the ones born blind, Or to mix our metaphors, those sheep who are part of the 8%. Because Jesus also reminds me of the parents of queer kids that I've met who have this fierce mama bear quality, fighting tooth and nail in their churches and in their world for their kids' rights. Jesus, the model shepherd, Jesus, the hound of heaven, Jesus, the mama bear. Whichever image works for you, whichever speaks of the fierceness of Jesus's love for you today, run with that one. A couple of closing postscripts and reminders. Try your best to stay a sheep. Avoid becoming a hired hand. This is the message I'm trying to preach to myself today. Because I think pastors, even though we have shepherd as part of our name, we're tempted to promote ourselves further than Jesus actually does in this story. We think that it's our job to keep all our sheep safe and in line, and we panic when they start to drift away. But the truth is, Jesus is the good shepherd. It's Jesus's job to lead the sheep. We are sheep. And that's why if you come to me and you tell me you need to walk away, even from open way, which has happened before among us, I will be sad because chances are I've become rather fond of being in the meadow with you. But I won't scare you or shame you or try to force you to stick around, because I'm trying to trust that Jesus won't leave your side wherever you go. And we'll always keep the gate open, that open way, in case your path brings you back around this way again. And speaking of open gates, there's this mysterious part of the passage I've glossed over until now. And I know some of you have been like, when are you going to talk about the other sheep? Jesus says, I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them, or I must lead them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. Who the heck are these other sheep? So many theologians ask this question. Are they Jews who have been scattered to other parts of the world? Are they Gentiles, AKA most of us? Maybe we're the mystery other sheep. Maybe they're people of other faiths whom Jesus is leading in other ways. Maybe, says the little universalist in me, the other sheep are everyone, literally everyone. Jesus leaves it a mystery, which lets us know that it's actually none of our business. We're not the gate. We're not the gatekeepers. We're not the ones who decide who's in and who's out. We're just the sheep. But it might help us as sheep to start getting used to the fact that we're not the only chosen ones. The people that we least expected might be right now in another flock that Jesus is leading, not sheep in waiting, but people Jesus already calls sheep. And to borrow another one of our images today, Jesus will mama bear the heck out of us, but as soon as we dehumanize or de-sheepify someone else, as soon as we say they're irredeemable, too far gone, we know she's going to turn around and mama bear them too. So how wide does your mental sheep pen stretch? And how spacious are your pastures? I hope they extend beyond Open Way, beyond all churches, because we have a shepherd who has a wild heart, who roams all over the place, laying down his own life so we won't have to let any of us go. And we have a hound dog God who won't lose our trail, a mama bear God who knows us by name, and no one can snatch us away from her. So feel for her and listen for her voice and trust your instincts, because it will sound and feel like goodness, mercy, unfailing love, life to the full, more life than is even necessary, more than we could imagine. Amen. You know, we've been reciting the Apostles' Creed from time to time together in these services as another way to remind us that we're part of something bigger. And this has been easier for some of us than others. I'll be honest, there's parts of the Apostles' Creed that I feel like I have to cross my fingers to say because I wrestle with them. And since I'm all about switching up our images today, I thought we'd try a new interpretation of the Apostles' Creed. This is from a blogger named Sarah Moon. And I'm using it for reasons that will become clear. It uses mama bear and feminine imagery for God. I'm going to put it on the screen right now. Let's see here. That's not it. That's it. So images including Sophia. It's a word that means wisdom, a Hebrew word that's a feminine word associated with the Holy Spirit. And if you're in a path that makes it hard for you to say, I believe anything today, know that you still belong here and that nothing, certainly not An unreadiness to recite a creed can block God's love for you. But do feel free to read along with me if you'd like. I believe in God, our mother bear, source of all being. I believe in Jesus Christ, God's wisdom made flesh, along with Sophia and the church and all that live in wisdom. Born of the badass womanist liberation theologian Mary, suffered under the systems of oppression of this world, was crucified, died, and was buried, forever joining in solidarity with those murdered by empire. On the third day, the women declared him risen, signifying God's no to oppression. He points to God, our mother bear, who works in this world, calling for justice for the poor and the oppressed. I believe in Sophia's spirit, Christ's body, the church, the communion of saints, the grace to reject this world's systems, hope for justice in the future, and renewed life everlasting. Amen.